6 openings across the league when it comes to head coaches. Many names being floated around. General managers making some big decisions. Look at that cute little graphic of our little coaching carousel.
I love seeing my team's logo in terms of the coaching carousel.
You okay with that?
If we get Ben Johnson, I'm okay with that.
Well, we'll have to ask our Pete Prisco what he thinks about that. We're going to have our Pete Prisco put on a little GM hat. We know that you love playing games, and that's what we're going to do here now on HQ. All right, who would you hire if you were the GM? We're going to start with the latest vacancy, the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy out. It ends at 5-year tenure in Dallas. Who gets the next shot if you're in charge?
Well, I would look in state, and the guy I would look to in state would be Steve Sarkisian, the head coach at the University of Texas. I think he's done a great job with that program. But more than that, this guy's had experience in the National Football League. He knows what it takes to call plays in the NFL. And I think you could wow him. The concern there is the money. You know, there's some talk that Jerry Jones won't go past a certain number for a head coach. And if that's the case, he's not going to get Steve Sarkisian. But if he really wanted to get a guy who could go in there and work well with Dak Prescott and kind of get that offense back to what it used to be, or at least close to that, you know, put some explosive plays in it, I think definitely Steve Sarkisian would make a lot of sense for the Dallas Cowboys.
A lot of people saying that Jerry Jones, obviously a smart man, he always is one step ahead of everyone else. Do you think that these are conversations that have been going on already? Maybe a conversation with Sark, Pete?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. If you decide to walk away from Mike McCarthy, and they were negotiating, and supposedly it came down to length of contract, I think he has some alternative plans there. And when you do, you look at Sarkisian and what he's done for the University of Texas, it makes sense. Now, he's not alone as a candidate. There are other guys. If you wanted to look at another college coach who played in Dallas, you'd look at Deion Sanders. And maybe that's a direction you look to if Deion wants to leave Colorado. So I think there are options for him, but I think Steve Sarkisian would be #1 on my list, and I'd make a call to him.
All right, let's look at the Chicago Bears next. So they fired Matt Eberflus midseason. The Bears' next head coach will get an opportunity to work with Caleb Williams, you know, some other talented players on defense as well. Play matchmaker for us, Pete. Who do you like there?
I like Mike McCarthy. He knows the division well. He was there in Green Bay. He knows what it takes to be one of those teams that can win that division. He's got a young quarterback. He's been around young quarterbacks in the past and done great things with them. And I think he brings, you know, an identity to that team. But more than that, he brings skins on the wall. I mean, he won a Super Bowl in that division. And I think Mike McCarthy is a significantly better coach than he gets credit for. He's an offensive guy. That's where his background is. And I think that would be good for Caleb Williams. So if I'm the Chicago Bears, Mike McCarthy would be #1 on my list to kind of instill his ideas in offensive football and his culture on that organization. They need change. Mike McCarthy would be big change, and he knows the division.
The Bears wanted to chat with him last week. Jerry Jones put in the halt on that, but now he is open to whoever he wants to chat with. All right, next up, your team. Jacqueline's team, the Jags, less than 12 hours after the conclusion of the regular season. I don't know. Why are you shaking your head?
My team. What's going on, Pete?
They're not my team.
Oh, they're
I don't
mine.
care if they win or lose.
You care a little bit. There's a little part of your heart that cares about the Jags. Come on. Seriously?
No.
You're the mayor of Jags. You gotta own it.
I don't care about I don't care about anybody winning. I promise you. I do not care.
Okay.
But I will say this: if I'm the general manager of that team, which, you know, if I were the general manager, I would care, by the way. Wink, wink, Shad Khan. I would care greatly. And I think the guy they should hire is Ben Johnson. And I've been saying that for months. And he's the best guy. You go in there, you change the way you play offensive football. Trevor Lawrence needs that. It was stale with him. Everybody wants to point to Trevor Lawrence and how he hasn't grown as a quarterback, but I think the offense was disjointed in large part because I didn't like the way they played it. I think they were too horizontal and not vertical enough. With Ben Johnson, you'll get those vertical shots down the field. You get creativity, and I think he can do for Trevor Lawrence what he did with Jared Goff. The problem is the general manager. If Trent Baalke is in there, Ben Johnson's not going to go there. So I think if Ben Johnson has other opportunities and he really wants to go to Jacksonville, he should use that chip and say, you know what? Trent Baalke has to go. Ryan Newmark's my guy. He's in, he's out. I'm the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
A lot of Ben Johnson fans out there. They, hot name out on the list right now. We're going to go to Las Vegas next. Now, the Raiders fired Antonio Pierce. He took over for Josh McDaniels after Week 8 of the 2023 season, got that full-time job. 4-13 this year. So who's the next head coach for the Raiders?
Well, I think if this was me playing Tom Brady and making the decisions in that
Tom
building,
Brady,
it would be
Pete.
Brian. Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I would be Brian Flores. I would bring Brian Flores into that building. I think Brian Flores would instill a tough, physical brand of football for the Raiders, and there are ties to Tom Brady. He knows the Patriot way. He came up that way. Tom Brady knows the Patriot way, so it makes sense. And I think when you look at that team, they don't have a quarterback. They have to get one, but until then, you got to build up the physical part of the game, and I think Brian Flores will do that on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's going to be a much better coach in his second go-around. He learned from the first time. It was a little hard. It's one of those things, you go into a situation, you try to be Bill Belichick. You can't be. Players will see right through that. I think Brian Flores will be a much better coach second time around.
How much say do you think Brady has in these decisions and helping bring people in?
Ton. I think he's going to make a lot of the decisions. I think he's going to be involved actively because he knows the game and they trust him. So absolutely, he's going to be very involved.
I want to ask you about the Jets next. So they brought in their former GM and Mike Tannenbaum, as well as a dear friend of us here at HQ, Rick Spielman, to assist with their next coaching search. The Jets, they need a lot of help right now. So if you're GM, who can you bring in to help lead them to victory, at least changing around this organization?
Well, if Rick Spielman can do it, anybody can, right? Isn't that the old adage? If Rick Spielman could be a general manager, then anybody can. But, I mean, that search is wide. The net is wide. I mean, they interviewed his brother. Think about that. And I joked around. I said, when are you going to interview your mother and your wife? Are they next? I mean, come on. I mean, it's been a wide search. I like the fact that they're doing that, though, because I'm a big believer. You interview as many as you can and take the knowledge from them and write it all down. And then when you don't hire those guys, you've stolen their information. Oh, well. And I think that's a smart thing to do. But that's a whole nother aside to this. I would hire Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn will bring that kind of culture into the building that they need. Tough, physical, won't take anything, and yet he knows the player. He was a player. He played for the Jets. And I think he would be a perfect guy. If you want to kind of get that Dan Campbell feel on your sidelines and in your building, I think Aaron Glenn would be perfect for them.
Nice fit there. All right, what about the Saints? They fired Dennis Allen in early November after the team's 7th consecutive loss. Who do you think can come in and maybe rebuild that organization? So play matchmaker for us in New Orleans, Pete.
Well, it's a challenge. Whoever gets that job is really facing a challenge because of the cap situation. It's so bad. Age has crept in on defense. So whoever gets that job is going to be one of those guys that's going to be really up for the challenge and feel they can go in there and turn that thing around. I like Joe Brady. I think Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, would make a lot of sense. Remember, he earned his stripes at LSU when he had Joe Burrow and gang throwing it around. He's a creative coach. He's innovative. What he's done with Josh Allen this year has been incredible. Getting the ball out of his hands. They kind of changed the feel of the offense. The turnovers are down. I think Joe Brady going to New Orleans would make a lot of sense. I think he's ready for it. I think he has that personality that would do well there. I think Joe Brady and the Saints would be a perfect marriage.
Perfect marriage, just like you and your wife, who we all adore. Pete Prisco, you are one of a kind. You've done well as a GM, maybe. We'll see if any of those picks come out to be true.